Hello, my name is Andy Smuskiewicz, and welcome to the next episode of the Salvation from Destruction podcast. Before we jump in, I would just ask that you please just like and subscribe to my channel because it really supports the channel when you like and subscribe. So, in today's episode, I will be speaking with retired K-9 handler Jim Pacetti. Jim served as a police officer for over 30 years. During the initial 5 years of his career, Jim served in the patrol division of his department and subsequently advanced to the position of a gang crimes narcotics investigator. For the remaining 25 years of his career, he operated as a K-9 handler within his department's K-9 division. Jim had the privilege of working with several exceptional dogs: a German Shepherd named Arno, a Belgian Malinois named Amber, a bloodhound named Melanie, and a wire-haired Vizsla named Tanner. Each of these remarkable canines had a specific role, which we will discuss shortly. So I'd like to welcome to the show Jim Pacetti. How are you doing?
Hey, Andy, how are you? Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Thanks for being on. I've worked with canines, almost my entire career, and I've just had such a soft spot for these canines, and they're just a remarkable tool that has helped us out, in our careers, and have really looked out for us and helped us find articles, help us find people, and even had to protect us a couple times. So thank you again for coming on. I really wanted to highlight you as a canine handler and all the things that you've done in your career. So let's jump right in. And I'd like to just ask you, how did you get into law enforcement, and how did you get into like the canine division?
Law enforcement as a whole, it's not your atypical answer of, I wanted to help people, I wanted to give back to the community. It was, if you're a thrill seeker, that type of personality, law enforcement is a route to go. I mean, when you're just running and gunning, chasing bad guys and, helping good people, that's what it boils down to. And, it was a secure job, a great career. It wasn't so much a job, it was a career. And I wouldn't change it for the world, even with all the ups and downs. It's just, I'm not the office type. I can't sit in a cubicle and stare at a wall or a computer. It was hit the ground running, and the rest is history.
I know you started in patrol. And so what made you want to get into canine? I know some people like to do investigations. Some people like to do traffic enforcement. And there's a bunch of different divisions that you can go into in law enforcement. But what made you really want to get into canine?
So the agency that I work for, a very large agency with every imaginable specialized unit that you can imagine. So plenty to choose from. Working patrol was unique and exciting to itself. Very busy, but a lot of self-initiated type activity as well. Had an opportunity to go to our gang crimes narcotics unit, and I thought that was the spot of all spots. I mean, that's when you're going after some pretty bad dudes and having fun while you're at it. And that was a good run there. And then the county just had some change laying around, I guess is the best way to describe it. We had a very proactive, aggressive deputy chief who wanted to incorporate canines in a department. We only had at that time explosive dogs, bomb dogs. And I'm not a fan of explosives. I like all my body parts. And there was no way I was going to want to have a dog that led me to a device that could blow me up into pieces. So that was not an interest. But this particular chief wanted to start a patrol dog unit. And if I have the numbers correctly, I believe it was just under 100 people applied for it, and 8 of us were selected as the original group.
How did you get selected?
So it was an interview process. They, in law enforcement, they pretty much will go over your background, your job performance, your work ethic, your personnel file, anything that can hurt you, medical abuse. Being a poor employee will get you eliminated. That particular unit, the K-9 unit, they wanted good, hardworking, aggressive officers that were willing to jump on board with a new project and really turn it into something successful.
That's what I always try to tell even the younger guys when they would come in. Your reputation on the job is everything. If there's something that you want to do, keep in the back of your mind, your reputation is going to sell itself. So be sure to get out there and do the right thing. Be a team player, support the guys that you work with, and work hard. Just be honest and work hard. And then once you establish that relationship, especially if there's other units that you're interested in getting in, put in for them. But if you're going to go out there and be a slug and you're going to get passed up, there's nothing that you can do.
Look in the
There's
mirror, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You hit it right
So
on the head. That's the same. Any agency, politics are going to play into it. We're not going to lie about that. But
mhm.
your reputation will get you in spots that you hope to be. That goes a long way. I'll take a good, hardworking employee over a politically connected one any day of the week. So that you speak volumes. Hit it right on the head.
Yeah, absolutely. Explain the part of the process of selecting a dog and the training.
Sure. So once they announced the initial group, the 8 of us, we went to a police K-9 facility in Dyer, Indiana, a place called Landheim. And there were a couple different businesses out there, and he really specialized in getting a high caliber German Shepherd. At that time, that was in 94, 95-ish, somewhere in that ballpark. You only saw German Shepherds out there, male German Shepherds. That was your atypical police dog. And this guy that owned Landheim had a really good contact in Europe with importing these dogs. So once you were selected, we had a start date, and we started the class. It was really unique because we were a large class for Bob Fleming, the owner of Landheim. He had, if I remember correctly, he had 10 to 12 dogs ready for us. And they were basic pre-trained dogs, so very limited training, just enough for them to understand what the dog was like, its personality, and little tidbits about it. And what we did for the first week or two is we worked with all these dogs. And they wanted to see how our personalities were, what type of demeanor we brought to the table, what type of unit we came from, because you want to mirror that dog and the handler, because what goes up line goes down line, and it's critical to have a really good match. So we worked with all these different dogs, and then they paired us up. And I joke and I tell people for all these years that they had an easy pick for me because, Arno was the best looking, hardest working, great personality, and that was an easy fit.
Right.
But I lucked out. Man, you can't go wrong with the German Shepherd. They make a first-time handler that doesn't know squat about nothing look pretty good because they're insanely smart and very loyal. And what a great first dog to jump into the canine world with, and very interesting. A lot of memories come back from that period.
So, did you pick him or did he pick you? My family and I, we had a Dutch Shepherd that unfortunately he passed a couple years ago. But I feel like he picked us. And was it the same for you? Did you guys have that chemistry, you and Arno? Did you have that chemistry right away? How did you know that he was your dog?
So you're so into it. You're raw. You're green. This dog owns you. They know far more than you do, and you're just really trying to get with the program, and you're learning in class, and then your bond is just instant. There was a period in class, and the class length typically is like 6 weeks, but since we had 8 of us, they extended our class to get a better amount of it. So we went 8 weeks. And we were very fortunate. Within the canine field, you have these organizations, and master trainers are like, just a wealth of information. They certify dogs, they train dogs. Well, we happen to have one of the most notorious master trainers out there, Ben Bennett from Norfolk, Virginia. And he was with us the entire Canine Academy. And just an unbelievable amount of knowledge came from that man to be passed on to us from one cop to another. And I want to say we were in like week 4 to 5, and Arno developed a little quirk where when we were doing bite work and like the decoy would come in and try and attack me, and Arno would turn and run away. Not
Really?
exactly what we wanted. We wanted the dog to protect the handler. So we had an issue, and they tried every trick in the book to get him out of it. And we gave him one final test, and they prepared me. They said, if he doesn't pass this test, he's going back to Germany, and we got another dog for you. And everyone was pulling for him.
Yeah.
I've already got this bond with this dog. The family, I'm bringing him home.
Right.
Our child at the time, she was young, but my wife was already attached to him in a short amount of time. And we set up this blind exercise, and everyone's rooting for him. Come on, Arno, you can do this.
Right.
And he was put into it, and he passed with flying colors, just absolutely annihilated the guy that was supposed to hurt me.
Mm-hmm.
So at least we knew, all right, this dog will protect its handler. So he got to stick around. So I was very happy about that.
So it finally clicked for him, in other words.
Yeah, it's interesting. Patrol dogs are like a Swiss Army knife. you're teaching them all different things, and they have to master all these things. You've got narcotic detection, bite work, article search, tracking, building search, handler protection, just the list goes on and on.
Right.
And you're learning it. The dogs learn it. It's a challenge, but it's a fun challenge. But the class itself was, you build on confidence. You start trusting each other, you and the dog. I think to answer your question, I think you accept each other. Right? The dog looks at you like, all right, this guy or girl ain't so bad. And, after he protected me, I was like, all right, I'll keep you. We were ready to boot him back to Germany, though. I mean,
right.
So the class is done. Then we have certification, and they just pounded us over and over and over again. Trust your dog. Trust your dog. The training of the hours put behind it and everything you do. If you don't trust your dog, you're not worth a grain of sand. And certifications are very stressful because it's make or break you.
Can you
And
explain what a certification is?
so it's set forth by the organization that you plan on joining. And the particular one that we joined, Ben Bennett, excuse me, was a master trainer, and that's Napawata. It's one of the largest police canine associations in the country, and their certification is like a final exam. And every
Got it.
facet that you have that dog in, every element, they have to pass a certain quality of that test. And if they don't, then you fail. And that's either back to school or ship them back, one of the two. And it's stressful because it's just like going to a police academy and working on the street are two different things.
Oh, yes, they are.
You know what I mean? And same thing in the canine world. I mean, I came out of that canine school thinking, man, you could put a gram of weed anywhere in a building and this dog will find it, and you could do this. I came out incredibly confident. And then I hit the real world, and you go into a house that wasn't a very pleasant environment with all the expected distractions that you can put forward. So it's a reality check when you go out in the real world.
On the law enforcement side, what are some qualities that a new officer should look for in a dog?
So a lot of it's going to depend on what you're going to utilize the dog for. Times have changed. Cultures have changed. You're seeing a lot of police dogs go out that do not have bite work in them, apprehension. No one wants to go down that path anymore, like what we worked in back in the day. So it's more single or dual purpose in a sense where they have a couple specialties that they work on, but not so violent, if that makes sense. Narcotics are always a high demand, and tracking/trailing is also a high demand to look for, the missing kids, elderly, criminal. And I'm sure we're going to get into that with that dog down the road. But when it comes to the dog, energy is everything. They have to be reward driven. They got to work for something. There's got to be a paycheck there, and be it a ball, a tug, food reward. And you evaluate these dogs prior to putting them in a pre-selection type school. And if a dog just doesn't have it, doesn't mean they're a bad dog. It just doesn't meet our standards. We want the best of the best. We thought we had the best of the best with the German Shepherds we had. And I had an opportunity to take a German national police officer on a couple ride-alongs, and he made it real clear to me that they are not shipping their best dogs to us in the States. So,
oh, that's funny. Yeah.
Like, I thought we had the best dogs here. And he's like, no, far from. So
Right.
very interesting concept.
Another question that I had, and a lot of people I know do ask, is how do you train a dog to detect narcotics and the human scent? I know they're two different scents, but how do you train one of these canines to detect those odors?
So the long and short of the answer is it's association. So it's association and reward. So you're teaching the dog, when they smell this odor and they give a positive indication, alert, there's an indication. An indication is I'm going to get all technical on you here,
That's
a
okay.
distinct change in search behavior. So dog's walking down and all of a sudden you see a head snap, right? A head throw. That's a indication, right? Distinct change in his behavior, him or her behavior. An alert is a trained behavior. And you have aggressive alert where they'd scratch, bite at a specific location, or passive alert where you'd see a dog like sit or stand and stare intently at a specific location where that odor is emanating from. And then you just find out what toy drives them crazy. Could be a tennis ball, could be a rubber Kong. Back in the day, we used a lot of rolled up towels. And when they got the reward, then we're playing tug of war. And it's just a game. That's all it is just a game. The dog has no clue that they found 2 kilos of heroin or 20 pounds of weed. They just found, hey, I just found my toy.
Right.
We had, 2,000 kilos of cocaine in a truck. My dog thought it was probably a 2,000-pound towel. And there's,
Right.
the odor is just so overwhelming. But it's just matching up what drives them. Some dogs are food reward, and they work to eat. That's how they survive. Right. It's a hunt. It's diving into their natural instincts. Like wolves in the wild and animals, right. They don't survive unless they eat. Same application with the police dog. That takes some very focused intent, and you need to be really on top of that. But the reward is the route to go.
So how do they track human?
So there's 2 different types. You have tracking and trailing. Tracking is when the dog is smelling what we call ground disturbance. So you walk through your grass, your yard, and every time you step in that grass, you're crushing the vegetation, and you're creating a new odor scent where that foot was. Right? The crushed vegetation, wooded areas, grass, weeds. A tracking dog will follow that from footstep to footstep to footstep. And that's what we started with the German Shepherds and all of our patrol dogs. Yeah. Problem we went into was Cook County is 98% concrete. So when they got out of the grass or when they got out of the woods and they hit hard surface, where's our odor? Mm-hmm. Good point. It blew away. We started doing our research, and as good as our patrol dogs were with doing the tracking, we were hitting some unsuccessful outcomes because of the concrete, the hard surface. And then we went into making a presentation to acquire a bloodhound, which specializes in that. But to train a dog to smell human scent it's magical. The trailing aspect is a completely different application versus tracking. And trailing, you're teaching the animal to follow the scent of a person. And it's like the bloodhounds, and they are scent specific, which means everybody's scent, your scent, my scent, your daughter, son, your wife is different than everybody else. It's like a fingerprint. Mm-hmm. And that's how strong those noses are, is they can separate the billions and billions of scents out there and just stick with that one specific one until they get to the end for their reward. And how that is applied, in a sense, is your body is shedding billions and billions of dead skin cells, just, and they're microscopic. You can't even see them unless you had a high powered microscope to view it. When they come in contact with moisture, those dead skin cells turn into a gas. That gas essentially is your scent, and that's your fingerprint of your odor. And what we do is train the dogs to associate scent and reward, just like doing a dope search. And, you start baby steps and you progress up into the extreme difficult measures. And that is a whole different ballgame, is when you get a bloodhound, a man trailing dog. We can go on for 100 podcasts talking about all the accolades and what they're capable of doing, but it's a truly amazing animal. And not to shame any dual purpose police dog out there. I've had 2 patrol dogs, full service patrol dogs, and a single purpose dope dog. And that bloodhound buries them with capabilities. And that's being polite. It's insane what they're capable of doing. But yeah, that was a fun one with that run.
If you could explain the different breeds of the dogs that you work with and the specialties that they bring to the table. In my career, I've worked with, regular German Shepherds, the Malinois, and I've worked with you on a couple of cases with the Bloodhound.
Sure. Pre 9/11, everybody was just using German Shepherds. That's all you saw. And, I could be off on the numbers, but a green German Shepherd, untrained, green means untrained, importing them from Europe was maybe $5,000 to $6,000. And they were great, right? Insanely smart, very loyal. Alpha dogs, that's what we loved. You want an alpha dog, some more than others, and challenge the handler to, just like that son that looks at dad and says, I think I can take him today. That's what these alpha dogs would do. And after 9/11, you saw the price for the German Shepherd just absolutely skyrocket. I mean, celebrities were paying $100,000 to get a trained German Shepherd for protection. And that did us no good in law enforcement. We're not going to spend $100,000 on one dog. So there was another breed out there that was getting a lot of notice. It was big in Europe, and the military was very profound with using them. That was what we would like to call in our line of work is a German Shepherd on crack, and that's the Malinois. Wow. Talk about energy. The German Shepherd, incredibly smart, loyal. And if I used to tell kids, if I were at the edge of a cliff, and I gave the German Shepherd the command to jump off, he would look over and assess it and then look up at me and say, how about you first? If I had that Mal, which I had like a 40, 45-pound female, and I gave that same jump command, without hesitation, she would have jumped off the cliff. And if she would have survived the fall, she would have ran back up and looked at me and begged to do it again.
Wow.
Just a different world. Wow. Energy beyond belief. That is definitely a second dog for a seasoned handler. That's a tough dog for a first-time handler because just with the energy that they possess, and everything's fast, fast, fast. German Shepherd, a little bit more methodical in comparison, but both have their pros and cons. The German Shepherds, the one I had, he was 90, 95 pounds of pure muscle. And he looked like your atypical German Shepherd. He was intimidating. He didn't bow down to anybody. He was an alpha. He hated mice and he hated elephant, everybody in between. Loved the confrontation, and occasionally he challenged me. And we were always told, don't let that dog win. If that dog wins, you're done. So there were some battles, but that comes with the territory.
So how would he challenge you?
Just like a kid would challenge mom or dad, defiance, right? I told you to sit, and you just look up. I'm not in the mood to sit. And, you give another command, let's say we're working on sit and give another command and nope. And then you give a verbal, you progress, right? You give a verbal. Right. And in one particular case, I gave him a verbal and he just sort of rolled his eyes, just like a teenager would.
Really?
And then I gave him a little correction with the collar and told him again, and then he growled at me. And I was like, oh, this is that moment.
Yeah.
Sure enough, man, it was like two lions coming together.
Right.
And yikes. Yeah, there was some damage. He put some punctures in me, but like I said, you cannot lose.
Right.
There's some guys, some gals that are put in that situation and they opt out for K-9. Not everyone's got the same cut or mindset. They can't imagine their dog wanting to hurt them. And that's just what they are. They're a machine. And I'm okay with it. I want a hard driving machine that's trained to do what we ask and occasionally challenge dad. I went into our K-9 center. Now we have an established unit. I think we're up to, maybe 16 dogs ish at that time. And we have guys, they're trainers, and we're doing everything in-house now. And Arno is nearing the end of his career, just health issues and whatnot. And I find out that we got a new batch of dogs at our K-9 center, and I go in there to check them out. And I call our boss up. And I said, who ordered these sickly looking dogs? What is this? And he goes, oh, you have no idea. That's a Malinois. And I'm like, a Malo what? Never heard of it. And the trainer, he was ear to ear. I called him. I was like, dude, seriously, this is not going to back up the massive crowds that we would have confrontations with. He goes, all right, I'll see you in a little bit. And he put a challenge to me. He says, go ahead, throw the bite suit on. And he goes, if you can stand your feet with a bite from this dog, I'll ship him back. And I was like, well, you better go get the ticket now because none of these are going to hurt me. Because they were half the size. They looked scrawny. And I put the suit on and I go running in our field and he's waving me on, go, go, go. And then he released it and I could tell you it was a blur. I'm used to the Shepherd, right? It was like a galloping Clydesdale coming at you.
Right.
And I was like, like picturesque. And here's this blur. And all of a sudden the blur went airborne. And I was just like, what in the world is going on? And next thing you know, I was getting tossed like salad. Needless to say, that little dog was a female, and that was my next dog. That was Amber. So Amber got to make me well aware of what a Malinois can do. And they are tenacious. You do not want to see their B-side, and we'll
Mhm.
keep it family friendly with that. Figure that
Yeah.
out. But insanely social, insanely social. The German Shepherd Arno, very protective. You couldn't come in our house. I'd have to put him up or get a hold of him, because if you just came in, you were violating his territory, and he would tear you up. Amber would open the front door for you and say, "Come on in." You know, she just knew the difference that much better. I think it was I don't know. Working with male and a female, I'll take a female dog any day of the week now. I just
Really?
I'd have to say that they want to please you more as the handler. Like the male dogs, they have a bit of an ego and brawn to them, and cockiness, I guess, if you
Mhm.
will, and that's fine. But the female dogs were like, they were there to make you happy, and being successful and seeing you happy made them happy. So it was really cool to see the gender change that we started seeing, especially with the Malinois. It didn't matter, male or female. They were all psycho. They were crazy. So yeah, that was our second run, was going into the crazy world of Malinois.
I had the Dutch Shepherd for 13 years. He was a big boy too. He was about 90 pounds and just a wonderful, loyal dog. He was very protective of my house, especially the females in my house. But he was low key. I could bring him outside off the leash. He'd listen to me and he'd listen to my wife. He'd listen to the kids. Just a very good tempered, well mannered dog. And about a year ago, we got a Mal. And they are just like you said, the Dutch Shepherd was a male, she's a female, and they're like sometimes kids. They're two totally different breeds, two totally different mindsets. And the male, same thing. She's not that big at all, but she is just a ball of energy. It's like literally an on and off switch. There's no in between. She's either going 100 miles an hour around the yard, and then she'll come in, and it's like she'll just collapse,
Yeah.
and with her tongue hanging out, and she'll fall asleep, and then she'll get up and let's do it again. And this is all day. But she is a wonderful dog, and they're just a great breed to have around the house too.
Yeah, it's not a good pet. I wouldn't recommend it. I mean,
Yep.
there's better choices. Let's put it that way.
Right.
You got to know what you're getting.
Mhm.
Got to know. I see people with males as pets. I'm like, oh man, good luck.
Right.
It's a different thing, but oh God, they're just, well, you see it. They're just so passionate towards you, and the energy level. When I got Amber, we were just moved into a newer house and spent all this money on a fence. It was like, oh, this is gonna be great. We got the privacy fence, big yard, let her run around, and brought her home. And we're in the front driveway. We're talking to neighbors, and all of a sudden, I see a dog running. I'm like, that looks like Amber. And someone's, who left the gate open, right? Threw in the back again, come back, and I hear scratching again, and she gets over the fence again. That's a 6-foot high fence. I'm like, how is this possible? So I threw in there again. Now I'm peeking on the corner to see what she's going to do. And I didn't hear anything. All I just see is this thing jump in the air, like leap straight up. And then she's perched on top of the fence like a cat. The
Right.
athleticism in this breed is unmatched. And a 6-foot high fence was just like a walk in the park to her. So
Right. No, go ahead. So when you had these dogs, did they come home with you? How did they interact with your wife and your kids? Or did you leave them like at the department kennel?
So our majority of the agencies, ours included, you took your dog home. I knew the federal agencies were really big on not allowing their handlers to take the dogs home, so they had to board them somewhere. We didn't agree with that concept because that bond was broke in a sense. As long as you treated it properly when the dog was home, because at the end of the day, it's a work tool. It's a work animal. It's not a pet. It's not your new fluffy couch potato. At the end of the day, that's a work animal, and it should be more driven, more excited to go to work as opposed to staying home and
Mm.
getting spoiled by the family, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
You had to be a little hard, and the family at times had to be, put in check, like, hey, this is not play pet time. This dog's
Right.
got to go to work. So, and each dog's different. You sort of balance that. But yes, we did take them home. Depending on the dog and the environment, they were phenomenal. Good free security, right?
Right.
A barking dog that's a police dog. It was added work, right? It was like having another kid. It was,
Right.
if you go on vacation, okay, where's the dog go? I mean, it's a police dog. You just can't dump the dog at the
Right.
local, vet. We had to make a lot of acquirements just to do simple things in life. People just couldn't come over to your house and walk in and grab something. The
Right.
dogs roaming around. Family parties. You had to, for the most part, put that dog and lock him in a room. So it changes your home life, but it's all for the good. I'm just giving some examples
Yeah.
of the importance of it. There's nothing better. I mean, having that dog come home with you and work. You're with your partner more than you are your family. I mean, you work with them, they're at the house with you. That bond is just immeasurable. You could, until you have a dog as a handler, there's just no way to grasp what kind of bond that is. I can describe it as best as I can, but you will never understand it unless you are at the end of that leash, with the police dog doing whatever search or whatever function. It's just different, but well worth it.
What was there ever a time when Arno or Amber really looked out for you, really saved you in a fight or saved you in an instance? Is there any particular story when it comes to that pops out in your mind?
Yeah, there's a good handful of them. Arno was just his mere presence was a defiant action. Man, we would have with these riots. I'm dating myself now, but the Bulls were winning championships, and for whatever reason, you win a championship, and let's go out and riot. But we would have hundreds, if not thousands, of coppers out in full riot gear. They didn't care. All right, let's fight. But once you brought out that little four-legged fur missile, everyone started to think because nobody wants to be the first one that gets bit.
Right.
Everyone's a tough guy until that first one gets bit. But
Right.
those German Shepherds can back up a crowd. I mean, when you're going face to face with a police dog that's chomping on their teeth and drool's coming out and their eyes are just daggers
Mhm.
going through you, it's pretty intimidating. Even as a
Mhm.
dog handler, I've looked in the eyes of some very mean dogs, and I wouldn't want to mess with them. So, and we're the trained ones. So Arnold was definitely a gladiator with just his mere
Mhm.
presence. Um, we had there was a suburban agency that one of their officers was punched, and the guy took off running. And we came into that town and we started doing a yard-to-yard search. By law, we have to make announcements before we release the
Right.
dog for the search. And I released Arno, and he runs into this backyard, and there was like a small hauling trailer by the detached garage, and he just starts barking. And we train the dogs passive indication, a reasonable force type thing, where if someone's passive or silent, they just bark at them. And if they fight or flee, then it's go time. So
Got
he's
it.
barking. So we all shine. It's 2 a.m. So we shine our lights down, and there's this big old dude hiding underneath the trailer. I called Arno back, and I said, "Hey, the gig's up, bud. Come on out. Show your hands, or dog's coming in." Well, he must have thought I was bluffing. So I released Arno, and he went in. And it was hard to see if the guy tried hitting Arno or pull away from him, one of the two. But he couldn't get a hold of him. It was up in the elbow area, and Arno backs out. I call him back to me. Tell the guy again, come on out. Our dog's coming in. You already know we're here. He called my bluff again. So Arno goes in. This time he gets him, and he drags him out. And he had a full bite, like in the inner arm area. And this guy stood straight up with a 95-pound dog draped down and just
Oh,
started
man.
punching him and kicking him. Everyone wanted to go to Arno's aid. And I said, whoa, 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 easy. Let him. He can handle himself. And one thing about dogs, police dogs in general, we would teach them once they got a bite, they don't release until we tell them, and that's it. So when the bite's on, if you fight or strike or make them angry, there's only one thing they'll do: squeeze harder and
Man.
harder and harder. And if you've ever been bitten by a dog, it's bad enough when the canines puncture into you, but when they get that whole jaw on you, and then you start thinking, what's the pounds per pressure of a German Shepherd's bite? It hurts a lot. So long story short, he got the hint and he complied, and off to the hospital he went, and extensive surgeries because of all the tearing. There is a good part to this story. Months later, I hear one of our patrol cars in a bordering county, and someone had a warrant. So they called, and then they said, hey, can you bring the dog over? And they said who was there, and it was the same guy. So I told them, I
Really?
said, hey, be careful with that guy. He's known to fight the police. And they're like, he ain't fighting nobody. There's 8 of us here. He said, hey, why don't you swing on by and do a drug search of the car? I'm like, I'm heading that way. It'd be great to see
Right.
him again.
Right.
I get all the way out there, and they say, hey, disregard the search, and you can chalk it up as a find. I was like, what's that mean? They said, well, we told his partner, hey, you know the dog that tangled with your buddy? And he's like, yeah, he messed him up bad. He goes, well, he's coming out to do a drug search. So if you got any drugs on you, you might want to tell us now because that drug's going to search you. And he goes, all right, all right, all right. And he pulled out of his crotch a sizable amount of narcotics because he didn't want to mess with the dog that tore his buddy up. So the story is infamous. It's a long story, but it's a great ending. That was Arnold. Amber, man, she was fearless. So I think there was more fights involved with her because people saw her size.
Really?
They're like, what's that? And she loved it. I mean, it was like, it was some of the biggest, baddest dudes regretted messing with her.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and so athletic. They would try and hide in places that no human could get to. And she was like, bing, 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 and just got them. Amazing. She got compliance just because, you know, she was more not intimidating by her size, but she was like that psychotic look. Like, man, when she started going, when she was in that B mode, it was like, wow, look out. So amazing. I mean, just it's like having the best partner in the world, right? That you never have to second guess. Never have to worry. They laugh at your jokes. You know, it's as good as partners I've had, human partners, ain't none of them ever come close to a dog. Never.
I could only imagine. And what's funny too is I was blessed with the opportunity to be able to work with our department K-9s over the years. And I was able to wear the bite suit a handful of times and work with them. And I have a suit on and I was getting bit. And I tell you what, it still hurts through that suit. I mean, you could feel their teeth and you have no recourse when they're coming at you. Like you said, it's like getting punched and they knock you over and they're on you and you have no choice but to submit. But the one dog I wanted to touch on was Melanie, your bloodhound. I know one time in our career, you and I worked a very high profile case, and those bloodhounds, they're a whole nother breed. They're used for a whole nother purpose. But like you said, they're so relentless and so unique in themselves. I'll let you elaborate a little bit on Melanie.
Man, where do you start? But we, like I mentioned earlier, with the tracking application, we were losing a lot of opportunities because of all the hard surface. And we started doing some research on the bloodhound and how they specialize in scent discrimination, and surface means absolutely nothing to them. Doing a little bit more research at the time, a bordering county's town had one, and wealth of information. Joliet Police Department's a larger agency, and the handler at the time, I'll give him a shout out because he was very instrumental, was Darren Prohaska. Just loved coming out. We'd call him and he's jumping on and coming on, getting on our calls. We made a really big push through our administration to get a hound, and it got denied, I think twice from 2 previous administrations. So we had to keep trying when we got new personnel in there. This particular administration was more receptive, but they didn't think the dog would be that busy in a huge metropolitan area like Chicago and Cook County. That dog's for the woods and down south, as they say. But their rule at the time was, they're like, we don't think the dog's going to be that busy. We'll prove it if a current handler will take the hound. Or like one person having 2 dogs, and which was unheard of. And we're like, well, if we want this, and I was probably one of the senior handlers at the time, and I said, heck, I'll do it. So started doing more and more research, found an outfit in Florida, God bless them, Duke and Angie Snodgrass, perfect name for the bloodhound world. Everything's a story behind this. Their son was a Lake County, Florida deputy sheriff, and he was a canine handler, a bloodhound. And unfortunately died in a motorcycle accident. And they wanted to breed, raise, train, and gift bloodhounds in his honor. So they started this organization called Deputy Dogs 832. That was his badge number. And we met, We talked, we agreed upon coming down to Florida to do some evaluations. And he was a little skeptical about letting dogs go, Duke. He wanted to do the training there, but we had to sort of sell him like, hey, we've been around the block a time or two. We're pretty confident we know what we're doing up here. That's what we'd prefer. And he was okay with that. Before I left, there was a pretty high profile case up in the northern suburbs of Cook, really horrific, where unfortunately the little girl was killed by her mother. And that girl's name is Melanie Beltran. And I had absolutely nothing to do with the case other than knowing our people were on it and working it. And it's just, when you have kids and you hear about horrific cases like that, it hits you. I mean, you can vouch for that entirely, working the investigative side. And it came up, it was just, hey, how about we name this bloodhound after Melanie in her honor? And how do you even second guess that? So that was immediately accepted. So then we go to Florida, and we left here. It was like 4 degrees when I was here. And it was like 80 down there. I was like, man, what are we doing? And I probably should have got into all these dogs that we would import from Europe are already pre-named. They're already named. Like Arno is a really common name in Germany. It's like Michael. Amber, I don't know what the heck they follow very popular movies. If there's like when Rocky was running and gunning, a lot of dogs are coming over named Rocky. So Duke and Angie would, they named their bloodhounds after liquor and country singers. So Melanie's kennel name was Loretta Lynn. So we get down there, and Duke did not want to give any of the puppies up. That was rule number 1. Don't even look at the puppies. And we fought and fought and fought. And this little runt, 2-month-old, man, she was impressive. Duke was like, nope, that one you are not taking. So some negotiations and maybe some liquor was consumed to make those negotiations a little bit better. And Duke made it real clear, you are not taking this puppy. And I was like, why? Well, they would chip all of their dogs with the numeric chip because you couldn't breed the dogs, very strict bloodlines. And he goes, well, we chipped that puppy, and lo and behold, what do you think the chip number came back as? And I'm like, I have no clue. He goes, 832. That's Cody's badge number. I was like, oh my God. Well, I didn't give up. And long story short, we get to take her. He finally broke. Then I had to break to him that we were changing her name, but that was an easy sell. I just told the story, and he's like, this is going to be something really special, what you're bringing back up to the big city, Chicago. And from then on, the training, in comparison, like patrol dogs and other dogs, you typically don't start their police training until, like, let's say 12 months old at the youngest. Bloodhounds, you start them at 2 months old.
I never knew that.
Yeah. So she was 2 months old. We brought her back to the single digits of our lovely winter and started the training, and it was on. Everyone was on board with it. They always volunteered to do whatever I asked of them for training. And she just kept on just soaking it up. And, the big thing with bloodhounds is exposing them to everything and anything. So if the goofier or the more insane thing I can think of, I'd expose her to it. Like the trains would be running. I'd start with her outside the car and the train's, 200 yards away. And then eventually we got to the point where she was sitting right next to the train track when the train's going by, because I didn't want any distractions when she was working. Noises, other animals, foods, anything you can ever imagine to put in that dog, because their sole purpose in life is man trailing, to find people. They're a hunting machine, plain and simple. Everything about that dog, when God created it, gives them a superior ability to do what they do at the highest level. I'll break it down for you real quick. So, you got the long floppy ears, right? Everyone knows a bloodhound. Those are like brooms. They're sweeping in that odor. Like we talked earlier with the scent pulling off of people's bodies and the odor so that's sweeping the scent into their nose. They have one of the largest noses in the K-9 field, which gives them a much higher, superior level of detection than any other dog. the wrinkly skin. You see bloodhounds have the stretchy, wrinkly skin. That collects and holds scent. So it's like it just enhances it's right there. They're also known for their drool. You know, they got the jowls in the mouth and the drool drips down. That activates the scent and enhances it to make it a stronger presence. Their bodies are just built to go, 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 go.
Right.
Their odor, even their odor. The best way I could describe a bloodhound's odor, it's like wet leather. You got to love this dog because there ain't nothing nice when you bring this thing home. They're slobbery. Right. They stink. I mean, they stink right a second they get out of the groomer, for crying out loud. But man, what a working dog. Oh, man, so I was just working her, training her, and working Amber. So I was running 2 dogs. So I was pretty busy.
Oh, wow.
And at
how would you bring them to work? I don't mean to interrupt you, but how would you bring them to work? Would you bring them both together in the car together?
So that was another unique experience. Like we all had K-9 cars were like sedans, like the Crown Vic and stuff like that, single cage. In the back, the insert. Well, now I had 2 dogs, and it took a while. We had to fight with administration, but we finally got a Tahoe, and it had the split cage in the back. So each dog had their own little comfort area, and then it just transitioned into truck, the SUVs from then on. But it as Melanie got older and was more involved, you saw it turn into a competition with her and Amber, which was awesome because both wanted to be out of the car working, and they wanted to show up one another. When I got Amber, she was a young, annoying little female. And now she's a mature dog, and now she's got this little annoying little puppy just driving her nuts. And they would compete, and it was good. But Melanie, I think she was 7 months old when she started working real calls, because you have to be careful. I did not want to send her out there at such a young age on a criminal trail, because the thing about bloodhounds, there's no aggression. They're going to kill you with slobbering you and kissing you. And that's how they're ID, like they were scent specific. So we taught her, here's the odor, here's the start. We start here with the odor, the scent, and she goes to hunt to find it. When she finds the person that matches that, we would train it. They can either sit down in front of the person and sort of like, there they are, or we call it paws up, where she'd put her paws on them and just want to slobber them with kisses. So we had to be careful, because if we went after a criminal, a bad person, they may hurt her and shut down all the training. So we were saving all of her early searches for non-criminal ones to avoid running the risk of her shutting down all those months of training and possibly ending her career. And she got her first fine. It was a missing suicidal. It was like she was under a year old, which was insane.
So, and I want to elaborate a little bit on that. When you did take her out on like a criminal search, and obviously she's going to be different than Amber, because Amber could detect and find a person. And then obviously if she had to show aggression, she could. Same thing with Arno. If you wanted Melanie to find a bad guy, how would you pull security around yourself and around her? Can you explain that a little bit?
Sure. So we started learning real quick that while we're having a lot of success with this, and we're finding people left and right, and a lot of bad people, evil people that want to do us harm or the dog. And we need to really hone in what we do here, because this dog is a non-apprehension dog. She'll lick them to death, and we're going to get hurt or killed. Tip of the spear is Melanie, and I'm right behind her with 12-foot leash. And probably the most dangerous position is me with the dog up front. She's leading me to whatever danger if we're going after a criminal. So we started putting together basically like a search team, and we just call it like a tactical trailing team. So if we went after a criminal, we'd always bring a bite dog with us, a patrol dog, and they would sort of be 10, 15 feet back. And once we came in contact with the person we were looking for, or she was giving indications that we're close, we would just pause there and let the bite dog come up and then finish it. They loved it because they just got to go for the walk and take me to the bite, and I'll do all the rest. So we really started honing that application. Then we started incorporating our SWAT guys into it. And that took a lot more than you would think, because SWAT is a different breed. They work very slow and methodical, like when they're doing their clearings. And this hound's a machine. And not that she was running, but you're getting pulled, you're moving. And they were like, hey, you need to slow this dog down. I was like, nice try. Good luck. I can
Right.
pull back a little bit, but you guys got to pick up the speed. And so we did a lot of training with our SWAT guys or tactical guys, a good group of hardworking officers that we really, really polished this whole search team concept. And then we started incorporating the police helicopter into it. You know, Cook County, Chicago sort of shares the air unit, and they would come out and train with us. And it was working together to accomplish one goal, was to find good or evil, whatever we were looking for. And I really think we hit on something, because we started teaching that method throughout the country, because everyone would just go out with a dog and maybe one or two officers. Well, there's a lot of evil out there that don't care for you and will kill your dog and kill you. So we had to make sure we all went home at the end of the day.
I know you have a litany of success stories, especially with Melanie. Can you share one or two of those?
Good question. There was a missing kid up north in the suburbs, and it was a bona fide missing. The kid ran away because whatever reason. He was like 10, if I remember right. So it was 1, 2 in the morning. So this is he's at a buddy's house. I mean, he ran away. So we get up there, and it was great because there's not much traffic or anything. And we're having a really hard time getting a scent article. That was the key to any bloodhound search, was getting a good quality scent article, which you go in your house, there should be hundreds of items that you specifically touch. For whatever reason, they had nothing. It was all commingled. We start Melanie, and we go on, we're a couple blocks into it, and we enter like a neighborhood park, a playground set. And we go in there, and I'm like, all right, this is encouraging. Either he's here or he cut through here. And we get in there, and Melanie just starts circling around, and I can tell she's in odor. And I see a basketball on the ground. And I'm like, all right, maybe he was over here. And she's by this tree and just circling around. We're shining the lights, looking, nothing. And I'm like, all right, well, maybe he hung out here and he took off. Well, at that time, they called on the radio and say, hey, we have this. Is this a better scent article for you? I was like, heck yeah. So we're coming back. We'll do this again. So we go back to the house. We do it again, right back to the park. And she's circling around. And I'm like, man, this is, he's got to be here somewhere. And I look over, the basketball's gone. I'm like, oh, yeah, we got him. So whatever his name was, let's call him Johnny. I'm like, hey, Johnny, it's the police. We're here to help you. You're not in any trouble, trying to get the kid to talk. And then you hear him, I'm over here. We look over, and sure enough, he was off to the side. Everyone's happy. She's licking him, slobbering him. That's all she wanted, right? And I said, hey, buddy, we've been out. Everyone's worried about you. And I said, we got to get you home. I said, but we were over here. Did you come back? He goes, no, I was here. I was like, we were here. He goes, yeah, I saw you. I'm like, well, we came in here. I see you got your basketball. I said, where were you? He goes, in the tree. I was like, the tree where the dog was like circling around and looking up. And I said, he goes, yeah. And I was like, I looked up there. I didn't see. He goes, you didn't look high enough. This kid was all the way at the very top of the tree. And if Melanie could talk, she would have been like, hey, yeah, idiot, why are we back here? I told you once, he's over here. So I remember that funny little, it could have been bad, but that was one of the happier endings. And just like, her being so committed. And in the K-9 world, and again, this is not to insult anyone's intelligence, a K-9 handler will understand when you push a dog to do something more than once, sometimes you run the risk of the dog thinking, okay, I messed up, or you don't want me to do something, and they take you a whole different direction. It plays mind games with them. For her to stay true to that and go back to the same location where she knew he was just a commitment she had. So no matter how stupid I was to second guess her, to not look high enough, she was like, I'll get you back there. Again, north side, there was a serial bank robber on the loose. And the word was this guy had impeccable tactics, right? He didn't leave anything behind. He didn't touch anything, no evidentiary items, no finger blatant prints, nothing. He came in and did his thing and was gone. And they called up and they said, hey, we just had a bank robbery and we think it's our guy and we think he screwed up and want you to come up with the hound. So I get up there and we're watching the video of the bank robbery. He handed her a note well, let me back up. So when he walked in, he waited for someone to leave. And as the door was open, like he scooted in. He wouldn't touch the door. I mean, this guy was methodical. So he's at the counter. He gives a note. You can see the teller, and they were probably taught, don't resist, give everything they want. She's getting the money, and you can see him go like this to get the note back. He's not going to leave it. And then you see him screw up. And he leans forward. She says something. He leans forward, and just his finger, his index finger, he touches the counter for a split second. And he realizes they did it. He's like, oh, crap. And he's like, he gets his stuff and he takes off. And he goes out. We got him leaving in a certain direction from the bank. Well, I'm like, oh, we got him. So what we would do in cases like that is we would really simplify things. We had sterile gauze pads, and we would place that on, if you touch something, we would place that on the surface where you touched or you held something, and that basically is soaking up your scent like a sponge. And I just throw that in like in a Ziploc bag, and the dog's got your scent. I mean, it's mind-blowing that just a split second of him touching the counter, we got his scent. But it just shows you how incredibly, incredibly strong their noses are. I mean, just it's mind-blowing. So we got him on video going north from the bank. Well, I was like, man, I would push the dog to failure in training. Like I always wanted any one of my dogs to fail in training, because that's when you learned as a handler. That's where the dog would really be pushed to the limits and get frustrated, but get a positive out of it. And then when you went out in the real world to do the search, it was like easier, because we've been through this before. So knowing he went north, I had this routine with the bloodhound that I would face her the opposite direction, and I'd present the scent article, and I'd watch her while I'm putting on her harness, the whole routine. And her nose was like a compass. Once I gave her a scent, she started working. And I'm watching her as I'm getting a harness on her, getting a leash ready. And once I unstraddled her through the process, if she didn't spin and go the direction that we knew he went, she wasn't on her game. But
Really?
when she spun, I was like, we got him. Man, she's dialed in. We don't even take a step. Boom, we take off. That one was a very heavily populated residential area with a lot of mass occupant type buildings, apartments, condos, businesses, a lot of just distractions. And that's another cool thing about the hounds, man. They can ignore explosions going on. They just keep on trucking along, man. It's just cool to see them ignore everything. But again, it's the training you put into them. So we're moseying along. We come to a higher rise apartment building, if you will, or a condoplex. And she goes in the front door. Well, she ID'd the front door. And we train the dogs where if the scent went into a building via door and they smelled it, they would jump on the door, basically saying, it's in, we got to go in.
Yeah.
So she jumps on the door. We go in and we come into the lobby area, and there's 2 elevators. I'm like, oh, crap. This ain't going to be fun. But she ignores them and goes down the hall, gets to another door, jumps on that. It's a stairwell. Now we go up. I can't remember how many floors we went up. She jumps on another door, and we come out, and she's chucking on down the hall. And then she hits the brakes on the carpet, and boom, her head snaps, and she looks at the door, and she jumps on the door. So now all the backup's like, all right, he's in there. And we knock on the door, and some dude just answered, just like on TV. We're like, oh, what's going on, officer? And all these guns are pointed at him, and he's just coming. It ain't him. But we can see in the background, this guy was wearing something really unique, like let's call it a sporting jersey or whatever.
Right.
And there it is right there in the background. We're like, oh, yeah. We're like, hey, where's dude's at that? He's like, oh, he just left. Oh, really? He left in his car. So we start going through the regrouping. He hid the money in the bathroom. He went to go buy dope. So we left. And then our undercover guys were waiting outside in the parking lot, and within 5 minutes, he come back and they snatch him. So
Wow.
for her to go that distance just based on somebody touching with that split second their fingertip, and then going into a building and going up multiple stories and IDing a door where there's 40 doors in a hallway, amazing. I mean, you just have to experience it. And this, what a career. I mean, so much of a career that I've been basically told that I need to write a book about her career. I mean, it's just,
You should.
yeah, it's, I'm working on it. So it's
How
coming.
many years it is? How many years did she work with you?
So she passed away when she was 12 and she was working up until that day. Her last big case was the another Northside case, the little boy AJ that was unfortunately killed by his parents, and she was very instrumental in that case because of the story that the parents were saying that he went outside and ran away and someone kidnapped him. Well, she basically did a search of the front yard, and all she did was want to go back in the house, basically saying, "No, this kid didn't leave." And, I had so much confidence and trust in her at that point. It was like a kid's inside or he was taken out of here via a vehicle. And sure enough, that's what the case was. So that saved all the law enforcement personnel that was there. As you can imagine, a missing kid. FBI was out there given the totality of it. And for what Melanie did, it allowed them to redirect all their assets into a different direction.
Right.
And essentially close that case. And you probably can touch on that as an investigator. Probably Melanie's other half of her career, if you will, finding people. The other half of successes were very instrumental pieces of evidence that she was able to provide guys like you on task force and investigators that there's no way you would ever come across. And it's
Right.
because they were just so good at what they did. But unfortunately, she developed, unbeknownst to us, she had a tumor
Really?
while she was working. She was working with a tumor in her head, and it came on that quick. And yeah, she was, wow, what a special dog. I mean, all of them are truly amazing and stuff like that. But yeah, that's just such a different dog and what they do. And she was the dog of dogs, right? She was on everybody's call list, state, federal. I traveled multiple states away for the FBI. We worked some of the biggest cases. I was on call with the FBI for terrorist things, like the Boston Marathon. They had me packing my bags, getting ready to go out there. And it's just, that's what they thought of her. I mean, she had a reputation that just was, I should tell people I was a glorified driver. That's it. Nobody cares about the handler, right? She
And
was
they were the
special.
celebrities.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly. I
yeah,
used
they
to
were the
tell people
celebrities.
like all the PR that she caught, all the good PR, and they come out and do stories, and it was great PR. And there's a camera guy or photographer, and they're all ground level taking it, and they'd see my boots, and I started
Right.
telling people I'm going to put my picture on her badge.
Yeah,
When I take
that's
a picture
great.
of her, there's Jim, he's there. But wow, yeah, we can go on and on about her. She was something special.
So, what is some advice that you can give officers when they arrive on a scene, regardless of like the dog that they're using, whether it be, a Malinois or a German Shepherd or a Bloodhound? So you get that call of a missing person or a bad guy's running away. What some advice that you can give these officers when they first arrive on scene? Is it set up a perimeter? Is it find a direction that they're running? Is it all the above? Can you break that down for us?
So yeah, that's a whole different specialty. I mean, it truly is to have a high success rate. And I'll give credit where credit's due. LAPD, man, they're the masters of this, and we had them out numerous times, basically in a sense to teach perimeter. And it's really, I don't want to call it science, but it's poetry in motion, man. It's cool. So perimeters are key. You can't catch somebody that doesn't have anything to stop them, right? It doesn't matter. Like we would equate the average human can walk, what was it, 4 miles an hour. And then let's say we're going after a missing elderly with dementia. We break that in half, because they couldn't go a block, and then you catch them 8 miles away. But we had one that was gone for 9 hours. The guy was in his upper 80s, and he was gone for 9 hours. So we cut that four into half into two. So, well, we need to start searching 18 miles out and in and work our way in. They're like, you're crazy. Sure enough, they caught that guy almost 18 miles away, 17 something miles away. That guy's
Wow.
just hoofing along, right? So perimeters are huge. I can't tell you how many really major incidents I've been on, and everybody and their mother, all the cops are just standing around waiting for you. What are we doing here? Do we have a perimeter? No, we're waiting for you. What do you want us to do? Well, I don't know what to tell you at this point. We can try, but the odds are against us now. But perimeter's huge when you're doing like a manhunt for a person, and then just getting as much information as you can. Like, enhance your knowledge. Like, they have these specialty classes, like, to look for kids with suffer from whatever mental illness and stuff like that, and where they're prone to go to. The FBI's got insane amount of numbers. Like, the kids are, check all the waterways within half a mile of your search area. It's just amazing. So if you can eliminate or send little target search teams out to eliminate that before the kid gets there, it's huge. Like we've been out for looking for kids in neighborhoods, and man, we start pulling the overheads to see where the pools are at. And it's sad to say, but kids are attracted to water. And we've had our fair share, unfortunately, where it's too late. It's sad, it really is. It can be prevented, but it's one of those things where you just want to expedite and get things rolling. We always say with the dog world, call the dog. Don't wait until the last minute. Get the dog rolling, regardless of what you think their capabilities are. There's some application that can be used. And if there's not, there's not. There's no sweat off your back, but get the dog rolling. As far as like dope search and stuff like that, make it safe. I mean, you don't have to sit there and not do like a cursory search. We say, just take a peek, but don't go in there tossing everything, because that's basically stirring up all the odor. Makes it that much more difficult for a dog to work through. You want that odor to settle and they go right to the source. But yeah, communicate with your canine guys. They'll be the first ones to tell you what they're looking for. Building searches, set the perimeter. I lost count of how many times we get a call for an active break-in at a building or a business or a house, and the coppers there on scene, want to rush in and search it. Why? Set a perimeter. Right. Let the dog do all the searching. Let the dog do its work. That's why they're there. If we could do what they can, we wouldn't have dogs.
Yeah, absolutely. And in closing here, Jim, if there was a young police officer who aspires to be a canine handler later in their career, what is some of the advice that you would give them?
Realistically, never turn down an opportunity to explore different avenues in law enforcement. Go work with all the different units to get a taste of everything. Everybody's got their own niche. And if it's something you're fortunate enough to stay in, I mean, I was blessed. A lot of suburban agencies, they're one and done with their dog. The handler gets a dog, and let's say they work the dog for 6, 7, 8 years. Once that dog's done, they go back to patrol. That's their policy. We and others in the canine unit with the county, we're very fortunate to where if you had a good work ethic and a good reputation, you were basically providing an opportunity to get another dog or move on to something different. But I would say get involved in as much as you can, explore these different things, and you're going to know what you want to do and what you like doing. Obviously, I was in camp for 25 years. I liked it. It's one of them fields where every day was different. It was a challenge of training the dog and understanding the dog and really pushing the dog to new levels, training with some amazing people, be it locally, state, federal, all over the country, and then providing training to all these different folks too, and being really blessed to work 4 different types of dogs, right? I had a German Shepherd, a Malinois, a bloodhound, and then the last one was a wired hair Vizsla. And talk about that was a unique dog there. He was just a dope dog, but a fun little dog to work. I don't think I'd ever pick that breed again, because they have 2 attributes that I discovered that just don't work in our field, and that's a very stubborn dog and a very soft dog. So you got to pick one or the other. If you're stubborn, I get it. We're going to fight a little bit and you're going to figure it out. Or you're stubborn, we're going to wean you into our way, but you can't be both, right?
Right.
And that's what he was. And he finally figured it out. And Tanner was a really gifted narc dog. He was just funny to look at, but he loved working, man. He just didn't look like your average police dog. He's a little quirky dude, but he was a fun dog to work too, just because of how unique he was. So that was a challenge for me. And this is after handling 3 dogs. I mean, he pushed me to the limit a couple times. But getting back to your initial question, get involved. Go above and beyond. If you want to work in a K-9 unit at some point in your career, go out and train with the K-9 guys. We take volunteers any day of the week. You're a huge help, either running an exercise or keeping things unique for the dog. They're seeing a new person in the mix. And then you'll get to decide, hey, is this for me, or maybe this ain't for me? Because not everyone's cut out to be a canine handler. And we'd rather see that type exit early as opposed to getting involved with the dog and then basically being a waste of time. But yeah, law enforcement's what a great career. And without a doubt, my role as a canine handler for 25 of my 30 years in law enforcement, and the opportunity for our unit to grow and be a staple, not only within Cook County, but quite frankly, the nation, is truly because of great leadership. We had tremendous support from our command staff. All goes back to one of our top administrators that ran the original 8, Lieutenant John Lenahan, and our first fearless sergeant, Joe Gadudo, Joey G. He had our backs, and he really pushed us in the right direction and stepped up for us to put us in a win-win situation in uncharted territory. Fellow handler for many, many years, Eric Rodell. He finished the supervisory roles while I was in my career, and without a doubt, I couldn't have accomplished what I have without Eric and Joe and John, and leading us down those paths of success. And of course, the supervisor of all supervisors, my wife and my kids, had always allowed me to partake in these adventures and be gone from the house quite a bit on extensive searches, and always welcoming and loving every dog they ever brought home. So it's been a journey that I'll never forget, and thank a lot of people for contributing to the successes.
So, Jim, is there an email that someone, if they had any questions about having a dog or starting a canine unit, is there an email that someone could reach out to you at?
Sure, absolutely. Love to help out, pass the torch, as they say. And, it's, I mean, I don't think there's any better tool out there, especially in law enforcement. Like we said, when people need help, they call the police. When the police need help, they call SWAT. And when SWAT needs help, they call K-9. So we know the pecking order, but willing to help out in any capacity I can. A good email address is jmptrail, Trail, @gmail.com.
Perfect. And once again, Jim, I just want to say thank you for your time. Thanks for sharing your stories. It's greatly appreciated. And I'll put Jim's information down in the description. And once again, just please like and subscribe to my channel, and my email and all my information will be down in the description.